from InfoWars. It's California's woke legislation for 2020. Students cannot be suspended. And among the, it's, I'm not going to read that part anyway. This law, this legislation is set to ban all public and charter schools from suspending students for any willful defiance in the upcoming year. It prohibits schools, all of them, for suspending students if they're disruptive, no matter what they're doing. It doesn't matter. They don't get suspended. That if they're acting up, hitting, all of it, it's all okay. The kids stay in class. Teachers and school officials will not be able to suspend them from school. And this article goes on to say, as if California's public schools weren't already woefully behind national education standards, despite the state pouring $90 billion into the system this year alone, schools are now forced to keep kids on campus no matter what their level of constant defiance and disruption to the educational process may be. And the rationale behind this law, SB 419, is it's racism. Suspension equals racism. And the only reason they might be able to be suspended would be bringing a weapon or illegal drugs to school. And they go on to, talk about how suspension affects it is racist. And you may agree or disagree, but I just can see a classroom where nothing gets done. And so what I did when I read this, I called a teacher and I asked, I said, what here in Texas? Now, remember, schools are different, and even Texas schools. She's taught in one school that was more conservative, that didn't care what parents thought, didn't care, weren't operating on the fear of man, the fear of it being sued. And the school, the kids learned. There was rarely ever a suspension. There was corporal punishment in the school. And the educational standards and level of what the kids were learning was so much better. She's in Texas now teaching in a school that, even though this law does not exist, it's pretty much followed through unwritten. She told me that kids are, she's been hit as a teacher herself. She has literally been struck by a student. The student didn't receive suspension. And she says that you pretty much cannot do anything to suspend kids in class, no matter what they're doing. If they're all raising the roof through class and disrupting everything that's done, the only way that you can suspend is if you call the parent first, maybe, or even get the kid in trouble. You have to be able to call the parent. And she said, there's no phones in the classrooms. So tell me how you leave a group of 30 students when there's some that are being disruptive and rebellious, and to go call a parent when you can't do it. So in other words, the kids don't get in trouble for disrupting class. And she went on to say, when there's no repercussions, and she says particularly corporal punishment, because she said when you remove that, the kids do what they want because they know there's no repercussions. So yeah, they'll disrupt your class. She said, out of one of the classes, between 30 and 40 kids are disruptive in general every day. And that's 1/3 of the class, 1/3 of that class in that school system. And she went on to say part of it's because parents want to be friends instead of parents. And that kids right now in the school systems, even before this law in California, treat teachers very badly. And, she says when you do allow corporal punishment, and that, like I said, that right now, this is just an example of a lady that's been in a few schools in Texas that teaches. She said, when you allow corporal punishment and things and allow teachers to deal with something, suspension doesn't happen because there's a journey along the way where the issues are dealt with. And so, we know the schools or systems messed up. I'm one that believes you need to homeschool, and I know you guys are as well. But what do you think about this, where it's official, where you cannot suspend a student for anything, no matter what they're doing? And do you think suspension is racist? I'll let you guys jump in there with me.
I don't think suspension is racist, first and foremost, but this has been going on since the 80s in California, where kids are disobedient to the teachers. When I was in high school, I went to high school in California in a small town, and the kids, if a kid got bored and he didn't like what the teacher was saying or whatever, he can get up and walk out of the room, and she can sit there and say, well, you're going to get detention. And he'd just look at her and says, well, whatever, I don't care. And there's no respect anymore. The respect has been taken away. We have taken discipline out of our homes to where it's come out of the schools as well. And what's interesting about that is there's an article that just came out that in 2020, just starting here, 2020, when the winter break is over in Seattle, Washington, your child cannot come to school if they're not inoculated. But yet your child can sit there and hit a teacher, disrupt the class, be rude, and all that, and not get disciplined or suspended for that. But if your child is not inoculated and it's an a 4.0 great GPA kid, really smart kid that really wants to learn, but you don't believe in inoculations, no, you can't go to school. We have become like an upside down, twisty, turny society. And they're scared also with the suspension issue. A lot of people have said, oh, you're going to suspend my kid? Okay, then I'm going to homeschool. So they're kind of scared of that too, because it's also a money issue. Every child that is in school is when they get paid for that day that they are present. When they're absent, they don't get that money. So it's also about the dollars and cents.
But think about the quality of learning. You can't learn. You can't learn in that environment. These kids aren't learning. And then also think about this. Rebellion spreads. It does. People go to the lowest common denominator, unfortunately, in general. Sherry, do you have anything?
Yes, I don't believe in racism as it is the definition that they have today, because they base it on skin color and all this kind of stuff. Well, there's only one race, the human race, and that's biblical. So there you have it. And it's where at the Tower of Babel that they were sent to different parts of the earth and they acclimated to that climate. That's my personal beliefs. Now, they are throwing racism, the word racism, out on everything. So they're actually watering down what they call racism. And there are people that come against people because of their skin color or because of their beliefs, or, and so they're watering down the term of racism by putting it on everything. And they think if they use this buzzword racism, how's that racist to whoop your child's butt when it needs to be whooped? I mean, that's just old Southern. You raise crops, you rear children, you rear them, you rear them. That's an old saying. You rear them. You apply the rule of learning to the seat. You apply the rule of discipline to the seat of learning. And I'm not talking about being abusive, but I mean, kids are kids, and that old sin nature is going to come, and it's always in rebellion against anything. So now what they're going to have is they're going to have chaos in the schools, and what their ultimate goal is to dumb down the children so that when they get at voting age or whatever, they'll vote for whatever that they want them to do, and they won't know anything.
It's true.
Personally, I think every state ought to require that a high school student pass the same test that someone who is an immigrant applying to this country to become a citizen. I think that every high school student, to get their high school diploma, should be able to pass that test. Then they'll know our laws, and then they'll know the truth. But they're corrupting young minds. This is what it's all about.
Right.
They're corrupting them.
Yes. Desiree said that people can make anything racist, and suspension is a disciplinary action that's needed now. And she also said there might be a mass exiting of teachers. Mark, did you have anything on this?
Couple of different things. I agree, disagree with most everything said. I looked up the word definition of the word racism, and the initial definition does use the word It says against someone of a different race based on the belief of that one's own race is superior. The other one, though, I think which applies is the belief that all members of each race possess characteristics or abilities specific to that race, especially to be distinguished as inferior or superior to another race or races. So, in fact, you based on that definition, you could use the word racism in this scenario. Hi, John. Bye, John. At least wave at us, man. You know, don't consider us inferior. It's really you can use the word racism when you're using that definition. The other thing and here's one thing that Joe said that I agree, and I think anybody that has homeschooled or actually taught a class or anything like that is that the word bored. And quite honestly, I think a lot of your disruptions and everything has to do with being bored. I have literally watched you watch TV shows, and I think some TV shows do depict real life, and there are teachers that don't have disruptions because they relate to their kids, they find common ground, and they work that into their whatever they're teaching. And if you can do that with your students, if you're a good teacher and you want to do that, I think for the most part, maybe not 100%, maybe not 90%, but for you, you'll bring that 1/3 down to maybe 10% disruption if you really can get your classes together and make it so that they're not bored, that they want to do this. The only other thing is if you have the majority of your children want whatever's in the class, they'll take the ones that disrupt and deal with it themselves so that the school and the teacher doesn't have to disrupt. It's like a scenario of, the 90% of the class wants to hear what's going on, and you have 1 or 2 people that want to disrupt, and they'll say, no, just don't come to school because we want to hear what's going on. That's my, understanding my basis. That's what I would do as if I was the teacher. Anyway.
May I share quick, Sandi? Yeah, I was going to say the boredom issue as well. The sad thing about all this is a lot of the teachers have their hands tied and have to be based on the curriculum, and they also have to have it based on what the tests are bringing, because the school is looking to pass this thing that they now have where each school system has a grade and you have to be graded. I don't know if they do that in Texas or in Mississippi or North Carolina, but here in Ohio, our schools are tested. You get A's, B's, E's, E's, that's good. F's, Anyway, we've had schools here in Toledo that have gotten D's and F's because their kids are not passing the state test that's given. But yet these children are very intelligent children because the teachers wanted to go and expand. And so they took and cleaned the school up and got rid of the teachers that were trying to keep the kids from being bored. And now they got these teachers that are sitting there going, wah, 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 wah. And the kids are bored, and now they have problems in the classroom.
You can take any curriculum and make it interesting. If you're the right teacher.
They just don't know how to do it.
Well, that's the problem.
And every child is different. Not every child is going to fit into that mold of the school that they have, the school system. That's one of the problems too, is everybody thinks that everyone is a square, so they're going to go and put them in a square peg. not all people are square pegs. There's some triangular pegs, circular pegs. You know, everybody has a different gift and a different Achilles heel, so to speak, in education. But a lot of these teachers also, Mark, they don't want to do the job. They just
I get it. I know.
skate through it, get their paycheck, go out there and pick it and say that they care about the children. And really all they care about is their money. And that's understandable. You want to take care of your family and everything, but don't say that it's because you care about the kids.
Yeah. Well, once they clone all of us, then we'll all be able to infiltrate the system. And no, we don't even want to do
Oh,
that.
Lord, if they clone me, they're in trouble.
Sandy, I'm sure you got more to do than this.
Well, I would love to expand on this topic, but we're going to have to do it another day.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.